A-4, two-step equations. Two-step equations. When did you get here? Just now? Oh, did you get a pass? Okay. Alright, so two-step equations. First thing we're going to remember is when we're doing two-step equations, when we see that word solve, what is solve asking us to do? The answer? What are we trying to solve for? A variable, like an x equals. So to solve, we want something like x equals something. Okay, something equals c. Our goal is to get that variable isolated, that variable completely by itself. Okay. We already wrote out the definition of solve, so I'm just keeping it simple today. Is that okay? Yeah. Since we already wrote out like the intense definition. All right, let's just remember again for inverse operations. Again, we already wrote out that intense definition, so let's just use those quick words we used during. What does inverse operations, what does it tell us to do? Opposite, reverse, undo. So we have kind of three pairings that we like to think about. Okay, if we have adding, what is the inverse of adding, or what's the opposite of add? Subtract. But remember with that $5, there was a couple ways to undo that $5. One way was just to take it back, right? Give me $5. What was another way of getting your $5 back? Yeah, maybe you're paying for admission to the football game. Okay, so same thing here. When I have adding, if I'm adding a -5, rather than subtracting a -5, when I'm adding, we're going to undo that a little bit different than how we normally undo adding. We're going to make a workaround. Does anyone remember if we undo adding a negative? Add a positive. We want to get back to 0. So when we see adding a negative, we're going to think that we want to add a positive. All right, if you see divide, last one that we're doing here, and then we're going to jump into those examples. What is the inverse, or what's the opposite? How do we undo, or reverse divide? Multiplying, yeah, multiplication. They said, I don't know what I thought you said. I heard you say multiplication, but my brain thought you said addition. But then after I think about it, like, that didn't make sense. All right, so those are inverse operations, and we can go either direction. So if you see subtracting, what's the opposite of subtracting? Adding. So it's not always we're just going adding to subtracting, dividing to multiplying. It might go the other direction as well. Okay. If you take off your shoe, how do you undo taking off your shoe? Put it back on. You're going to look like a weirdo just taking on and putting on your shoes over and over again, but that's how you would keep undoing that motion. Be all sorts of silly. All right, so we have 3 examples we're going to do. Our directions are to solve. If this is something that maybe after the first example you are feeling comfortable with, on the other 2 examples you might work ahead. Okay, I'm going to be talking through them. And when I talk through them, it might feel like I'm going a little bit slower than what you need. And again, that's mostly because I know that some people may have had a tough year last year, might not have learned this, so we're just making sure everyone's on that same page. And then we'll do a Kahoot, so you'll get time to show your speediness soon. All right, so for solve, we're going to start by solving 2c minus 3 equals 13. Remember here, we're focused on that c. What am I doing with that C? You're right. I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. If there was a number there without this equals 13, if I put a number in there, what would I be doing with that number? Subtract 3. So to undo that, what am I actually going to start with? I'm going to start with that subtracting because that would have been the last thing we do. So to undo it, I'm going to start with the last thing, work my way backwards. So how would I undo a minus 3? Add 3. And because we have an equation that's equality, and remember equality means everyone gets the same thing. Okay? No matter what, everyone gets the same thing. If I hand a pencil out to one person, everyone gets a pencil. That's equality. Okay? So if I add 3 to this side, I have to add 3 to the other side. Okay, now that minus 3 plus 3, what is a negative 3 plus 3? 0. Do I have to write 2c plus a 0? We just know that this kind of cancels out. Some people like to cross out as they go. If you're one of those people, do that. I'm not, so that's like the only time that you're going to see me do that. It's weird to me. I don't like crossing out work I already showed. Okay, 13 plus 3. 16. So you actually do the math vertically there. All right, now our goal is to get the C by itself. So now what's happening with that C? Currently, it's multiplying. If you need to sneak in that little dot for multiply, sneak in a little dot. And how do we undo multiply? Divide. So I'm going to divide by 2, and because of equality, if I do it on one side, we have to do it on the other side. On my horizontal lines, anytime I actually have to do math. So that's when I draw those lines across. So what is 2 divided by 2? 1. So it's really we. Do I need to write 1c? No. Is c the same thing as 1c? Yep. And then over here, what's 16 divided by 2? 8. So that's my answer. C equals 8. All right, I'm going to do number 2 over here just because we have some space and I don't want to go to the next page because we've been doing a lot of 2-page notes. All right, so if you feel comfortable, you want to try and work ahead, you can do that. If you work ahead, make sure that you're checking back and seeing if you did it correctly. Okay, we don't want to write something in our notes that you get to use on your tests and have completely crazy things in there. Okay, so 3 minus 6m equals 57. So one way to think about doing our solving is we can think of sad Mr. A. We can think about that germ DOS backwards and start with the adding and subtracting, then go do our multiplying and dividing, then exponents, and then grouping symbols. Or, we're getting that m by itself, and this best friend, that coefficient, they're like besties. Okay? We're going to keep those best friends together as long as we can. This 3 is like that friend that's like kind of your friend, but like if your mom told you could only invite one friend over, you wouldn't. Okay? You would invite the 6. The 6 is your best friend. The 3, you'd be like, well, if your mom said you could invite like 10 people over, they'd be like one of the 10, but they're not the one. Okay? So, to get m by itself, I want to not start with the best friend. I'm going to keep those best friends together as long as I can. So I'm actually going to work on this 3. How would I undo this 3? Am I going to minus 3 or plus 3? Why is it a minus 3? Yeah, it's actually a positive. Where does this minus sign go? With that 6. So we're really just looking at a positive 3. And to get rid of a positive, we do a negative or we subtract. And again, if we do it on one side, on the other side. 3 is 0. We don't need to write the 0. So when I bring this down, I'm bringing down 6m. But that minus sign has gone through this beautiful transformation, and it came out a negative sign. Amazing. Went from subtracting to negative. All right, what is 57 minus 3? 54. If you're not sure of those answers, What do?
Calculate.
Use a calculator. All right, and then lastly, now we have to get rid of that negative 6. So we always want to think, what does it mean when they're touching? Multiplication. So how do we undo division? Now, one way we can do division is with this dividing symbol. You'll see that a lot in our Schoology because I can't do the other symbol in Schoology. But when I write, I like to use that fraction symbol for division. Divide by negative 6, divide by negative 6. Both mean division. Just this way is with a fraction line division. This way is with that symbol division. All right, I have a positive divided by a negative. I guess they're having full-on conversation without talking. It's crazy. Positive divided by a negative is a negative. And we get negative 9. Anyone else want to confirm that? Double check with your math fact, your brain. 9? We sure? All right, negative 9. All right, we have one more to do. Again, on this one, if you're somebody who you're like, I get this, I'm ready, go for it. Cruise on your own. Okay, number 3. We have 46 equals 13m plus negative 32. So what's the biggest difference between this problem and the other two we've already done? Close. You're thinking too hard. What did you say? The answer's first. The m's on the other side. It's okay. I saw that too, but good choice. I asked you what's different, and that is what's different. But on this one, that m is on the right side. So that's why I like to draw that line down my equal sign, is it helps me see what's on the same side as that m. What do I have to get rid of? What do I have to undo? So I'm 6. I'm looking at that side with the m. So with that m, I see I have a 13 that I'll need to undo and a negative 32. Who is m's best friend this time? 13. We're going to keep besties together as long as we can. So we're going to get rid of that negative 32. It's not that we don't like the negative 32. It's just not like our best friend. So, how do I get rid of adding a negative 32? Good. A positive 32. If we do it on one side, do it to the other. This is where we start looking at both sides. Now, some of my students in my other class, they understood this plus 32, but then they were like, how the heck do I know what to write here? How did we get 78? What did you do? Yeah, at this point, we're doing the math, and we're doing it vertically. So we're doing 46 plus 32. That's what tells us you don't have to add it like this. But our answer ends up being 78, right? Equals 13m. If you need to put in that multiplying, put in that multiplying. That can be really helpful. And we're thinking we have multiplying. So how do I undo? What's the opposite? How do I reverse multiplying? Divide. That dividing symbol, you can. I tend to, at the beginning of the year, I start with this dividing symbol, and then as we go, I do a lot more with that fraction line. But you do you, whatever you want. It's your choice. Lots of options in math, always. All right, 78 divided by 13. We might need a calculator for that one. Okay, 6. Did you guys use a calculator or just know that? You guys are nuts. 6 equals m. Remember, it's okay if the variable is on the right side. We're going to have the variable on the right side quite often this year. And so we need to get to that point where we feel a little bit more comfortable with it. Some of us, we see that m on that. It's okay. We'll live with that discomfort. It'll be fine. We're going to do it a lot this year.